You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!
All right, this is early Friday morning, 6 a.m. I've got Hansson Hindenburg calling all the way from Baytown Tires. He gets there early in the morning. That way he can get the best deals for you on tires. They have good, better, and best tires out there. So we got him on the line for you. Listen, Hansson, what's going on this morning, sir?
Staying busy. You know, I'm just really, this season we haven't really slowed down a lot yet, so that's good for us.
Have you noticed that this season your air conditioning work's just been just as busy in the December as it has been probably in July?
I was going to mention that. We've done, several.
Yeah.
We did an air conditioning job yesterday, which is usually not something we do in December.
Well, I posted on YouTube the other day how your air conditioning works just as hard in the winter as it does in the summertime. And I had a couple people say, "What do you mean works in the winter time? My air conditioning doesn't work." I went, every time you turn on defrost, it comes on. If not, you only get those two little half moons clearing off your windshield. And once I explained that to them, then they were, wow, I had no idea my air conditioning works. And I think a lot of people don't know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time you hit the the front windshield defrost, the air conditioner gets cycled on to get rid of some of that humidity in the system.
It is amazing, and it conditions the air out there. But I have to tell people all the time, air conditioning isn't just for comfort; it's for safety as well. And they go, safety? I said, well, if you can't clean your windshields off, and we have these storms that pop up in the wintertime and summertime, and you don't have a good defrost system, that's a safety issue if you can't see where you're going. And I'm sure you see that happen all the time. People argue with you going, well, my air conditioning's not a safety issue. I don't need that to make my car safe. And then when I explain it to them, it seems to make more sense to them.
Well, the humid days that we've had, and if your air conditioner is not working, you're not going to get rid of that fogginess of your windshield. It just won't go away.
No matter what you do.
What we've seen a lot too is, on the air conditioning noises, they go, well, why is it making a noise? Unfortunately, the clutch has gone bad.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a safety issue too. Well, I won't use my air conditioner for a couple of months. But if you go on a trip and the clutch decides to come apart, then you're going to be in trouble because on all the new cars, it's run by one belt.
That's it.
And the belt will pop off, and you're on the side of the road.
Too many people overlook the small things before they take a trip. I think AAA did a review, and they said the reason most people break down on the highway is running a car overheated, a belt popping off, a hose breaking. Overheating is the biggest reason people's holidays get messed up. Every time we call, it never fails.
I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad
sign. They know you're on television right now. They know you're down there, so that's the reason they're calling you right now. They do this every time we call. But I know, just give him a minute. He'll be on the phone. He'll get off in a minute. He can answer your question.
That's right.
But now we talk about air conditioning and we talk about belts, but a lot of people forget about their heater. Haven't you had customers come in saying, hey, my heater just doesn't blow as hot as it used to. My temperature gauge runs like it's supposed to. What could be the problem? I've had two come in this week, and it's only Friday, and we found out the heater cores are clogged up with rust. And we end up one was so clogged up that when we flushed it one way, it clogged up tight. Then we had to flush it back the other way to break it loose, and it took 4 times just to be able to get the rust out of it where water would flow through it. That's how bad it was. And then I told the customer, I said, there's no guarantee this heater core is not going to leak on you in a few months, because there wasn't any circulation of water underneath there, and that water will rot your heater core from the inside out.
And what we've seen a lot, too, is you don't want to always suggest it, but a lot of times if the system is clogged up like that, the heater core is bad, then the radiator, unfortunately, in most cases, really needs to be changed too.
The heater core is a symptom. That's right. The heater core is a symptom. Your radiator is your culprit, which is causing.
You used to talk about it a lot. We shoot the temperature differential on the radiator between the top and the bottom, and a lot of times there's very little difference between where the water comes from the engine and where it goes back out to be cooled off. And there really needs to be at least 40 or 50 degrees in most cases.
I tell people all the time, I say, if you really want to know what I'm talking about, find a car that's a brand new car, bring it, bring it to my shop. You come in and we can shoot the upper hose and the lower hose sitting still at idle with the air conditioning on, and with the fans running and sitting still. We should be getting rid of a minimum, on an older car of 30 degrees, but on newer cars, they're getting rid of 40 and 50 degrees of heat. But when they come into my shop after 10 years and I shoot them, I say, sir, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're getting rid of 15 degrees heat maximum, and you're tearing your transmission up. They look at me and go, well, my temperature gauge doesn't read hot. And I said, I know it doesn't read hot, but it's making your transmission run hotter than it should be, and it's making your air conditioning work harder than it should be because it's not getting rid of heat. And I think once we educate customers about that, they seem to understand that there's a reason radiators only have a lifespan of, I'd say, 10 years. What would be your opinion of a radiator lifespan?
I think 10 years is almost pushing it. a lot of times, when we do an inspection, we just look and we see stress fractures in the tanks all the time. After 5 or 6 years, and we're like, wow, I don't want you to go on a trip, and then you have a blowout of the upper radiator tank.
Absolutely.
And they don't believe you, but we go out and we show it to them, and it will spring on you. It looks like it's okay, and then 2 months down the road, all of a sudden, steam is pouring out.
Absolutely. And I caution people all the time, every 2 years, over 30,000 miles, change your coolant. And I know you tell them that too, but people seem to have this misconception that, well, my owner's manual says it's good for 5 years or 150,000 miles. And I said, yeah, but in 5 years, are you going to be in warranty? No. Then why should you believe what they have to say that's going to be 5 years or 150,000 miles? Because what I have found out, and I'm sure you have too, after about 2 to 3 years, that coolant has problems. And
we get a lot of people that go up north or are from up north and come down here, and stay a bit. And we test what the pH level is, not because it turns acidic. Also, we look at, what is the temperature drop? How cold can the fluid inside there?
Yeah.
And over the years, it's been a little bit low here and there, and people usually put water in it instead of putting, regular antifreeze back in there. So that it's usually only good to about 30, 35 degrees, which, even here in Florida, it gets cold like that sometimes.
Yeah, it does get cold. I remember back in '82, we got down to 17 degrees in Bayou George, and didn't get above freezing for like 3 to 4 days. That was back in '82, and that's when all the oranges down there in Orlando froze. That's how I remember that happening, was '82. And a lot of things. Well, speaking of '82, that was when the Morality Act got passed by the county commission. I just thought about that. Same year, the hard freeze. I guess that was a very nipply year then. Maybe that's the reason they passed that.
It's a PG show now.
That's right. But the point I'm trying to say is cars need maintenance. Belts need to be checked. You talk about that all the time, how people sometimes just out of sight, out of mind. We talk about struts, the importance of struts. I had a customer come in the other day, ball joints completely wore out, and the struts and struts on the front were wore out, and the back shocks were wore out too. The car just bounced down the highway. I said, sir, that's one of the reasons your joints are wore out, because you have so much play in it. And I said, it's also a safety issue keeping your tires on the ground by having good struts and shocks. And I don't think people realize that it is a safety condition, because they think shocks is optional, optional equipment like turn signals. And I go, no, turn signals aren't optional, and neither are shocks and struts. They're mandatory that they work like they're supposed to.
Well, and yes, people think that a shock or a strut cushions the ride, which it does. But one of the most important parts is, like you said, it pushes the tire actually onto the road surface.
Yep.
And what happens is, if they're soft, then you kind of float along, and it's really not putting the entire tire to the ground, because the tire skips over some of those parts.
Yeah.
And when you're skipping along, you don't have traction all the time.
And imagine going into a panic stop, and we've all seen that, where cars go into a panic stop and the tires vibrate and bounce, and we've seen those little marks on the highway where you see a tire's been skipping. And that is what we try to do with analog brakes to solve that problem. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have good struts and shocks on there, because it keeps the tire on the ground. It keeps it from bouncing. And that's
I see that some of the vehicles that come out now that have adjustable rides, that have the adjustable struts in them, they automatically, if you go in a panic stop, they automatically lock the struts up so that, it pushes it all the way down to the road surface.
I didn't know
so
that.
that it doesn't skip along.
I did not know
it
that.
not only kicks on the ABS, but it also locks the struts up on, and this is more on some of the fancier vehicles that have the adjustable rides on it.
They use electrical charge to the shocks up there. They're a metallic fluid in there, and they supply an electrical charge to make the ride stiffer or softer. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Right.
And Corvettes had it. I mean, the first time I went to change those shocks on a Corvette, and I told the customer they were $1,000 a piece, you should have seen their eyes get really big. And I said, "Sir, I don't make them."
Surprising, Chevy uses, Chevrolet uses some of those on the Tahoes and Suburbans.
Oh yeah.
And there really isn't an aftermarket solution. I've seen a couple that started leaking, and like you said, $500-$600 easily per shock.
Per shock, and you got $1,000 worth of shocks for 2 shocks, and then you got another hour and a half labor to stick them on, and they look at you going, "So you're trying to tell me $1,100 for a setup for 2 shocks?" I go, "Sir, I don't make them. I just tell you what they're going to take to be replaced on there."
No, I mean, I'm going to use a pun. It was shocking for me, too.
Yes.
We worked on one recently, and it was a Tahoe, and that's how much it was for 2, electronic ride shocks.
It is unreal, and people don't realize how these shocks and how these cars make the ride so much safer than it used to be. I remember it used to be, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the highways have gotten safer over the years as far as deaths for the number of cars percentage-wise, and that has to do with how cars are made now. I mean, we've got mandatory airbags, we got knee airbags, we got side impact airbags, most cars can pass a 5-star safety rating now. They're coming out on the road. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, that's at 35, 40 mile an hour, a crash, head-on crash, and you can survive it.
Absolutely. One of the things I like to look at, because I'm a car nerd, is where they take an old car. People always go, well, the older cars were built better. Crash it into a new car, and you can see what the vehicle does. 45 miles an hour. The old car kind of collapses on all the riders, while the new car, stuff falls off of it, which is supposed to, but the riders are fine and everything's okay. And a big old Cadillac really is a big safety issue, because the roof collapses, the engine is pushed inside the driver's compartment and things like that. So the new cars are very safe.
Yeah, much, much safer than it used to be. I think they showed a demonstration last year about this time. They showed a 1965 Chevrolet Impala, and they were doing a crash test with a 2015 or 2005 Chevrolet Impala. And they had crash test dummies in there, of course, and the dummies would have lived in the 2005 car. They could have walked away from it if they were alive. Where the dummies in the 1965 Impala, they didn't make it. They died. Hansson, we got to go. That phone's ringing. I can hear they want to get up with you. They can hear you on the television. So I'll talk to you next week at the same time.
Have a great week. Thank you.
You be good now. Bye-bye. All right, with James Morse, we'll be right back. Let's see. I've got Mark Sarlo should be calling in a few minutes, and he's calling from La Junta, Colorado, and we're going to talk about, we just never know what we're going to talk about when it comes to cars and safety and keeping your car on the road. So give us a call if you have a car question, 850-763-0555, right here on Fox 28 WPGX. We'll be right back.
James Auto Center, we fix it right.